We never left. The ice remembers. Never left. What you just heard is a fragment from the Torenza origin tape, a classified recording linked to the disappearance of Norwegian Special Officer Lars Andersen. He was last seen in an archival room, tasked with transcribing this very recording. He walked in, but he never walked out. All that was left was his recorder, running on a loop, and a single cryptic note that read, "The 9th gate is not an exit." My name is Elena Merrick. I'm an independent journalist, and for the past 6 months, I've been obsessed with cases that official channels have labeled unsolvable. Officer Andersen's disappearance wasn't an isolated incident. It was a thread, and when I pulled on it, an entire tapestry of disappearances, strange signals, and forgotten history began to unravel. It all started with Project Torenza. Officially, it was a failed geological survey in Antarctica from the late 1970s. But the deeper I dug, the more anomalies I found. Declassified logs mentioned strange magnetic fluctuations, crew members reporting auditory hallucinations, and a complete communications blackout that lasted for 17 days. Ships that were part of the supply chain vanished without a trace, their last known coordinates placing them thousands of miles off course, as if pulled by an unseen current. But the most disturbing connection came from an entirely different part of the world, decades later. An old Serbian broadcast signal, one that was famously associated with the dancing lady urban legend. Witnesses to that phenomenon reported a specific feeling, a sense of being watched, of time slowing down, and a strange, high-frequency hum in the air. That same hum was described in the Project Torenza logs. 2 separate events, half a world apart, linked by an inexplicable sensory experience. Was it a coincidence? I didn't think so. I believed Officer Andersen stumbled upon this connection, and it cost him everything. My research led me to a numbers station, an old method of sending coded messages via shortwave radio. An anonymous source in the intelligence community tipped me off, giving me just a single frequency, 17.9 MHz. He said it had been active, on and off, for over 40 years, always broadcasting from an unknown location. He warned me not to listen for too long, saying, "Some signals aren't meant for our ears." So, late one night, I set up my shortwave receiver. The static was thick, a wall of white noise. But as I carefully dialed it in, right on 17.9 MHz, something cut through. It wasn't numbers. It was a sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. A woman's laughter, distorted, warped, and looping. It felt ancient. Underneath the laughter there was a voice speaking in Serbian. I ran the audio through a translation software. The phrases were disjointed, nonsensical at first. "The mirror is cold. She dances where the sky meets the ice. 9 steps to the gate." And then I heard it. A clear, synthesized voice reading a string of numbers. They weren't random. They were coordinates. Coordinates that pointed to a desolate, uncharted section of the Antarctic ice wall, the same region where Project Torenza had vanished. The laughter echoed one last time. Then the signal went dead, replaced by the comforting hiss of static. But the silence in my apartment felt colder, heavier. The signal wasn't just a broadcast. It was an invitation. The following night, everything changed. I was reviewing my security camera footage from the hallway outside my apartment. It was a motion-activated camera, mostly capturing neighbors coming and going. But at 3:33 a.m. it triggered. Standing perfectly still in the middle of the hallway was a man. His face was unmistakable. It was Officer Lars Andersen. My heart hammered against my ribs. He wasn't frantic or distressed. He was just standing there, looking directly at my door. And he was smiling. I replayed the footage, zooming in. That's when I saw it. The hallway light was casting a faint reflection on the polished floor tiles. His body was reflected perfectly. But his reflection, it wasn't smiling. Its face was a mask of sheer terror. its mouth open in a silent scream. He stood there for exactly 1 minute, then turned and walked away, disappearing from the frame. My rational mind was screaming. It's a doctored image, a deepfake, a prank. But I knew, with a chilling certainty, that it was real. He wasn't just missing, he was somewhere else, and he had come back to show me. That's when my world started to break. It was subtle at first. My reflection in the bathroom mirror would lag a fraction of a second behind my own movements. A phone call would come from my own number, and when I'd answer, all I could hear was my own terrified breathing echoing back at me. The lights in my apartment began to flicker, not randomly, but in a distinct pattern, a slow, rhythmic pulse. The air grew cold, so cold that I could see my own breath fogging in front of me, even though the thermostat read 72 degrees. Frost started to form on the inside of my windows, crystallizing into strange geometric patterns like snowflakes under a microscope. The signals were getting stronger, too. I didn't even need the radio anymore. The 17.9 MHz frequency started bleeding into my other devices. It came through my laptop speakers as a low hum, through my television as a whisper buried under the dialogue. Then came the message. I was staring at a blank document on my computer screen when letters began to appear, typed by an unseen hand. The font was archaic, something out of a 19th century manuscript. It spelled out 2 words: Torenza welcomes you. The boundary between my reality and whatever place Anderson had gone to was dissolving. I was no longer just an observer. I was becoming part of the phenomenon. I knew I had 2 choices: walk away and spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, or see this through to the end. The coordinates from the 17.9 MHz broadcast were burned into my mind. I knew it was insane, but I had to go. I booked a flight to the southernmost port in Argentina and chartered a small icebreaker, telling the captain I was a documentary filmmaker shooting glacial melt. The journey was harrowing, the seas rough, the ice a labyrinth. But the closer we got to the coordinates, the calmer the water became. The sky turned a strange violet gray. We reached the location, a massive, sheer wall of ice that stretched for miles. But at the exact coordinates, there was a fissure, an opening just large enough to walk through. A cave. I told the captain to wait, that I'd be back in an hour. He looked at me like I was mad, but took the money anyway. Inside, the air was still and silent. The ice walls glowed with a faint internal blue light. The cave wasn't a dead end. It opened into a vast, circular chamber, and in the center of that chamber was a single, towering slab of ice, polished as smooth as glass. It was a mirror. Its surface was covered in a delicate layer of frost, obscuring whatever lay behind it. As I stepped closer, my own breath fogged the air. The frost on the mirror began to recede, melting away not from my warmth, but from a warmth emanating from within the ice itself. A face began to form in the reflection. It wasn't mine. It was the smiling, serene face of Officer Lars Anderson. His lips moved, but the sound wasn't coming from the mirror. It was a whisper, right beside my ear, a voice filled with an unnerving calm. "Elena, you finally arrived. We've been waiting." His reflection smiled, but his eyes were filled with an ancient, chilling emptiness. The whisper continued, no longer just his voice, but a chorus of voices overlapping, echoing from the ice around me. "The 9th gate is open. Welcome home." My reflection appeared next to his. But it wasn't me. It was a figure of pure static, flickering, its form barely held together. Anderson raised a hand in the mirror, and the static figure beside him raised its hand in perfect sync. The real me, standing in the cave, was frozen, unable to move, unable to scream. He wasn't trapped behind the ice. He was broadcasting from the other side, and he wasn't calling for help. He was calling me in. The last thing I saw was his smiling face as my vision dissolved into a roaring, deafening blizzard of white noise.